You found the skeleton. How would you tell people that this is you personally? How would you decide?
Well, interesting question. I don't know. I'd have to do some research on that.
Hey there, YouTube, the Dapper Dinosaur here. It's time for the Speculative Evolution Project Phase 3, Update 8. That's 2 more updates than the last phase even had, and we're not done yet. I have 6 new creatures for you, and before we get into it, I just want to say that, guys, this project is a lot of fun, and I really like making it, but they are really labor-intensive for me, and unfortunately, the algorithm doesn't seem to like them very much, so if you guys like this, here's what I want you to do. Share it around. Share it in any Speculative Evolution fora that you like. Share it on your Facebook, your Twitter, whatever. Help get it out there. And also share, the first few episodes of this so that people can get really into it. Because I love making these, but like I said, it is a big risk every time I make one because the algorithm kind of hates it. And honestly, if it weren't for my supporters on Patreon and in channel memberships who come into the Discord, help me out with this, and honestly just directly pay for it in some ways, I don't think this project could keep going. So if you want to help in that way, do check out links in the description. There's a join button right below this video. There is a Patreon page down in the description. If you have extra money to spare and you want to support this project directly, that's a great way to do it. And one thing is, if that is what you want to do with your support, let me know. Send me a message and say, hey, I'm supporting this directly for the Speculative Evolution project, because that helps me gauge just how much it is that people like this show as opposed to other shows that I do. So without further ado, though, we're going to get into lava grass, which is our first organism. The slopes of Neelan are a harsh place that are toxic to nearly all organisms. Clouds of sulfurous gases cling to the landscape, and the ground is mostly just hard basalt, formed from recently cooled lava flows. Even here, though, there is some life. Spiky black growths glint in the sunlight, growing slowly against the odds. Pictured here, a stand of some lava grass slowly growing on a lava field after an overnight rainfall. The rain puddles are quickly evaporating into a low cloud of fog as sulfur gas clouds linger over the area. Creature design by Dapper Dino. The main body of an individual lava grass is a lump of irregular tissue which is used primarily to store water, which is scarce in its environment. Because while Neelan gets plenty of rain, it evaporates quickly. Sprouting from this are a number of sharp, angular spines, each of which has a small amount of curvature, seemingly at random. These absorb radiation from recently cooled lava, but also from the tropical sun. These spines are also the reproductive structures of the lava grass. The body itself incorporates silicates and iron as part of its structure, and as a result, the spines are sharp and brittle. Additionally, the dark color allows the lava grass to absorb a broad spectrum of solar radiation, which then can power some of its metabolic activity via the photoelectric effect. The main body excretes waste from the pores at the margin of the bottom of the organism, which serves to help anchor it to the substrate. In the middle of the bottom of the organism is a bit of soft tissue that exudes acids that eat away at the substrate, so that those minerals can be incorporated into the lava grass's growing body. As a stand of lava grass ages, it will shed its larger spines. These are generally fairly light and will tend to blow at least a few meters in the wind, and are capable of growing a new organism. At the base of each spine is a cluster of pluripotent stem cells, which also undergo a process analogous to the first steps of meiosis, in which their genetic material is shuffled around to prevent each new stand from simply being a clone of its parent. When the new lava grass stand grows, it will be a chimera with different parts of its body descended from different lines of these stem cells. But as a matter of statistics, some of them will come to dominate the new organism's pluripotent stem cells at the base of each spine, and that lineage will be the dominant source of genetic material for that organism's descendants. Lava grass grows slowly, which, in a land as barren as Neelan, isn't too much of a problem. A new stand starting from a spine will take about a local year to grow a central bulb. About another year and it will have a nice collection of spines, and about a year after that, it will start shedding spines. Lava grass lives on freshly cooled lava flows where it can get plenty of radiation. Lava grass get their energy from a combination of ionizing radiation in the form of beta and alpha particles, as well as solar radiation. It gains the chemicals it needs from the substrate, the air, and what rain falls on and around it. Lava grasses are restricted to recently cooled lava flows on Neelan. Genetic ancestor? Featherbush. Scientific name? Novaculogramin neelanensis. Origin? Radiotropha. Lifespan? 5 local years. Average height? 5 centimeters. Alright, next up is Magnopius. In the relatively shallow seas between Kubshai and Yama, a placid creature swims from place to place, grazing on retinal phytes and on the occasional sessile or slow-moving creature such as rose limpets. This creature, the Magnopius, as an adult, essentially has no predators. It is protected by thick armor. Pictured here, a pair of Magnopius swim to a new feeding ground while being investigated by a curious Xenopistris. Creature design by Kipzilla. The 8 short, stubby legs of Durospina have evolved into flippers, so that Magnopius could move more freely and faster through the water. This change made it able to gather more food and gives it a bigger foraging range. The original Durospina shell, which was more rounded, has evolved into a flatter, wider, and more hydrodynamic shape to reduce drag and reduce the chance of predators eating it when young. The internal gas bladder has split off from the walking Durospina's descendants by splitting into 2, one on each side of the body. This increases its buoyancy, but also makes it a bit slower to swim, and the bladders are filled with digestive gases and can also be used for storage, where the plant material can be fermented to be better digestible. The mouth is reinforced with armor, forming a sort of beak that can cut parts of plants. The stomach of the Magnopius has extended into the posterior tagma, allowing for extra space and the ability of digestive gases to easily reach the gas bladder through a specialized network of filters. Magnopius are resistant to toxins of various pelagic phytozoans, which they opportunistically feed on. Magnopius has 2 sexes, male and female. When the mating season starts, the females will secrete hormones that indicate that they are fertile, and males will be able to smell this and meet up with them. Here, the females will eject their gametes into the water in a big cloud and secrete a smell that triggers the males to release his gametes. The male and female gametes will combine in the water and form a thick protective coating layer around themselves and fall to the bottom, after using a semi-permeable membrane to reduce their total volume by osmosis. On the ocean floor, they will lay for almost a week and develop into small larvae with fins, but otherwise resembling the ancestral Pitomisa. This baby Magnopius will then grow bigger and bigger over the next year and be fully developed and ready to mate at age 3.5 local years. Each mating event results in several thousand young, of which only a handful, often fewer than 10, will reach adulthood themselves. Starting off life as tiny, soft-bodied, barely nectonic creatures, newly hatched Magnopius are easy prey for virtually anything interested in eating them. Over the course of the first year of life, those juveniles who survive will grow quickly, and by about 1.5 years they will have a thick armored shell. From here they just grow in size, increasingly unmolested by predators. Magnopius are resident in the shallow waters all around the globe, except in the vicinity of Nealon and the northernmost reaches of coastal Arctica. They are transient visitors to deeper waters, where they will swim going from one feeding ground to another. During these transits, they will take a bite or two from large pelagic phytozoans. This usually causes them to swim away, often faster than the Magnopius can swim. And so these feedings are just opportunistic snacks to help keep the Magnopius energy stores up. The Magnopius primarily feeds on photosynthetic organisms, but will occasionally take prey, primarily sessile or slow-moving prey. They have large stomachs which can digest tough material, and they will typically gorge for a few days, then swim to a new feeding ground, vomiting up the waste from their previous meal, since they have a blind gut. Genetic ancestor? Durospina. Scientific name? Orclipius magnopius. Origin? Paleotagmata. Lifespan? 25 years. Average height? 75 centimeters. Average length? 200 centimeters. Next up, we have Pitomisa, which might be one of my favorite pieces of artwork that I've made for this project to date. Pitomisa might just be one of the strangest descendants of Durospina. Its claws have transformed into large grabbing tentacles with hooks to grab their prey. Its antennae have moved to the side of its head under the eyes, where it can smell and feel its prey move even under 15 centimeters of substrate. Its back is filled with hard, bony dorsal fins that even go under the skin, which give its tail a lot more extra stability and power. It protects its vital nerve that goes from its brain all the way to its reproductive system. Pictured here, a trio of Pitomisa investigate a school of Neuropteron. Creature design by Kipzilla. The claws of Durospina have grown longer and more flexible, with twin barbs running down the posterior margin. This allows for a greater range of motion and makes Pitomisa better at catching fleeing prey and eating them. The 2 antennae on the top of Durospina's head have evolved to move to the sides, and now hang down from the face to catch any movement that happens underneath the creature and inside the substrate. Durospina's legs have evolved into flippers. These allow the Pitomisa to swim long distances and keep a solid pace. The back flippers are reinforced by the internal skeleton, and the 3 front pair of flippers keep the Pitomisa stable. Durospina's armor has evolved into a skeletal structure, some of which is internalized. It now forms a protective layer around the main nerve running from front to back and forms back fins to give extra stability. It is also segmented for greater range of motion and reinforces the back fin with extra stability and power. This allowed Pitomisa to survive more attacks as young and allows for faster swimming as an adult. Pitomisa's spiracles have moved to the side of the body to allow for extra water flow and to make space for the skeleton up top. They, however, are smaller in size and require an almost constant water flow to stay sufficiently oxygenated. Pitomisa females release a big cloud of gametes when around fertile males, which the males can smell through the water. These gametes get released at irregular intervals when the female is sufficiently well fed to divert resources to gamete production. These gametes will then combine and form a lightweight sticky membrane which will stick to any organisms they contact. Pitomisa's eggs will stay on their host for up to 3 weeks, then they will hatch and release small juvenile Pitomisa, resembling their adult form. Then they will stay with their host, either latching on with their arms or by swimming closely near it for protection and ease of movement. In this stage of its life, it will eat parasites and dead skin cells from the host. However, when they get too big, they will stop following their host and find other hosts, or drop down to the bottom of the sea to eat small creatures from the substrate. Pitomisa have a nearly worldwide distribution, being excluded only from the extremes of the polar waters and the toxic waters near Dealand. Pitomisa are generalist predators. In the first stages of life, they will eat parasites and other small creatures, but they will slowly grow and start preying on other creatures that could be bigger. They can either find food by sensing it through the substrate and then grabbing it with their arms, or they can use their eyes to find large prey, turn them on their backs with their arms, and then tear their bellies open and eat them alive. Pitomisa have extremely sensitive antennae that angle downwards, and which can detect the slightest bit of movement under the substrate. They use this to track down their prey, which they can catch with their grabbing arms. Pitomisa in its early stages of life are symbiotic to anything it hatched on. Pitomisa in their early stages of life are symbiotic to anything they have hatched on. They get rid of parasites and dead skin cells. However, this changes over life, and they might actually become their host's predator. Genetic ancestor? Durospina. Scientific name? Paparia pitomisa. Origin? Paleotagmato. Lifespan? 8 local years. Average height? 60 centimeters. Average length? 250 centimeters. Alright, next up we have the Stroobug, which was another Dapper Dino design. And it is going to be read by Space Dragon, who has kindly decided to lend his voice talent to this project. If in the future any of you listening would like to add your talents to this project, do let me know. We've had guest artists and guest voice actors on this project, and of course, virtually all of the creatures have been designed by fans of the project, although submissions for that are currently closed.
Mid-morning on Yama sees a diversity of life going about their business. Some of the medium-sized organisms going about their business are bug-like organisms with spindly legs, armor plates, and 4 pincer-like mouthparts. These are the Stroobugs. Pictured here, a Stroobug chases a Lutu-lacerta while another reaches for some succulent leaves of a spiral bush. Creature design by Dapper Dino. The Stroobug is so named for its resemblance to a primitive insect of Earth. The rearmost limbs, which in the ancestral Striazol were used for rapid bursts of speed in the water, are here adapted to be sensory organs, which help to warn the organism of threats approaching from the rear. The legs are elongate and contain 3 major joints, one at the spot where the limb connects to the body, one about midway down, and one near the end before the distal-most portion forms a foot with a wide, nearly circular base. The armor of the Striazol is little changed in the Stroobug, and the abdominal tagma has 3 plates, with the head tagma having 1. While this armor does help Stroobugs avoid predation, their primary means of defense is simply to run away quickly and in an erratic manner. The 4 cephalic appendages surround a jawless mouth, and each ends in a bifurcation allowing the Stroobug to grasp and manipulate food and other objects in the environment. The 4 eyes are split into 2 pairs. One pair is forward-facing, with wide stereoscopic overlap, giving the Stroobug excellent depth perception. The second pair face to the sides of the head and are primarily sensitive to motion. These are for identifying potential threats in a wide field of view. The spiracles are set in a row of 4 spiracles on each side of the abdomen. Stroobugs mate around the time of the vernal equinox. Males will compete with each other in wrestling matches, with the winners gaining a territorial monopoly on local females. He will then dig several holes into which females will lay eggs, which he then fertilizes. Each clutch of eggs numbers around 300. Stroobugs hatch after 10 to 12 local days. They are small, unarmored versions of the adults. Most of these newly hatched Stroobugs will be eaten, even by other Stroobugs. But those who manage to make it to a year old will be almost adult size and will have strong armor and the ability to move quickly enough to avoid most predation. Stroobugs live along the coasts and inland wetlands on Yama, feeding on just about anything they can catch, including retinophytes, but also more active prey such as Lutolacerta. The mouthparts still function for chemoreception, although only weakly. Additionally, they have microscopic hairs that detect vibrations and air currents, giving the Stroobug a sense of hearing. The Stroobug also has both a wide field of view and an accurate sense of depth for things in front of it. Genetic ancestors: Striazol. Scientific name: Hexapodes scutellus. Lifespan: 5 local years. Average height: 18 centimeters. Average length: 71 centimeters.
Alright, well thank you very much, Space Dragon. Next up, we have Telmacarado. Telmacarado is a bulldozer of the underwater ecosystem. They are a keystone species and form their environment around them by digging through the soil and rooting up old plants, making space for new sprouts to grow in their place. This keeps the formation of large monocultured forests from happening, and keeps the ground-level plants competing and in a dynamic equilibrium. Pictured here, 2 Telmacarado root through the seafloor looking for bits of root to eat. Creature design by Kipzilla. Are you noticing the theme? Telmacarado have an exoskeleton that evolved to help it find its food source. Its main purpose is digging trenches through the sand. It fills this purpose perfectly due to its increased rigidity and heavy armor, which allows it to dig through the most compact soils. When it's in its plowing mode, it will angle its head down between 0 and 45 degrees and start walking slowly, increasing its speed. The horn on Telmacarado's head has first evolved to better dig through solid and compact soils. However, due to its increased rigidity and neck strength, it's also the main defense weapon against the many foes that prey in the waters above. The antenna has had a decrease in size. This has happened due to the many sharp and pointy objects that the Telmacarado can come across when digging, which can puncture or harm the antennae. The hump on the back of Telmacarado is used to store fat for short amounts of time. This can help the Telmacarado between feeding grounds. The Telmacarado has a gas bladder that it can fill with digestion gases to give extra buoyancy and stability, making the Telmacarado able to carry its heavy armor. This is made easier by the fact that the gut extends into the abdominal tagma, which is not typical of all paleotagmatans, who ancestrally have the gut restricted to the cephalon. Telmacarado has 2 sexes, male and female. They breed the same as similar species like Magnospina, because the females dump their slimy clutch of eggs into a sheltered bit of dug trench, and then the males come after and expel their gametes all over the slimy mass, fertilizing them. Then they will let that bit of the trench collapse and go on with their day. Males fight with other males for dominance and the right to mate. Young Telmacarado start their life as eggs. These will develop for about 14 local days before hatching and digging themselves out of the sediment. After they dig themselves out of the nest, they will resemble their ancestor Pitomisa, but will slowly grow into the adult form of Telmacarado over the course of 3 local years. After 2 years, Telmacarado are fertile and able to breed, but only after 3 years will they stop growing. Telmacarado lives everywhere in the ocean near the coast, except around northern Arctica and Neelan. Telmacarado lives everywhere in the ocean near the coast, except around northern Arctica and Neelan, where there is a lot of loose substrate where it can easily dig through, and where there are plants with roots and or tubers in the ground which they can eat. If it's too cold or the ground is too hard, they will either leave the area or die of starvation. Telmacarado dig trenches to find food and shelter. They do this due to the fact that roots and tubers are one of the least eaten parts of plants, but they are also full of energy. Also, digging slightly in the ground obscures them and protects them from predators. Genetic ancestor: Durospina. Scientific name: Telmacarado scopulum. Origin: Paleotagmata. Lifespan: 10 years. Average height: 30 centimeters. Average length: 85 centimeters. Alright, last but certainly not least, we come to the Thriveleaf. Thriveleaf has evolved a trilateral structure to optimize sunlight intake and resistance of ocean currents. It has a base system of roots from which it reproduces, and it has leaves that grow fractally. It grows up to 150 centimeters high, but mostly averages about 115 centimeters. Its large leaves and stem are filled with a thick slimy substance that keeps the plant upright in strong currents, and make the plant even more able to stand above the waters for a few hours. Thriveleaf has 2 main body parts. The root system is made from small roots that dig into the rocky outcrops on which they grow. They steadily dig into the surface of the rock and won't let go in the strongest currents when grown to their maximum size. They provide almost no nutritional value due to the poor soils in which the Thriveleaf grows, and is only able to pick up what nutrients exist there. The leaves grow in a trilateral fractal pattern. They have a rigid leathery skin that is filled with thick nutritious fluid, which it uses as an energy storage for times when there is less sunlight or the water is clouded. These leaves are hollow and lead to a central cavity in which much of the gas exchange of the organism is conducted. The walls are kept rigid through hydrostatic pressure. The trilateral nature of these openings in the inner cavity and the rotation between successive vertical instances of the leaves help reduce the net effect of currents on the structural integrity of the whole organism. Thriveleafs reproduce completely asexually. They either grow a new plant on the outside of the root system, or a snippet of its leaves gets carried away by the current and settle down in a new place where a new plant can grow. Thriveleafs are spread almost exclusively across the YNRS, Yamanatasha Reef System. Here it lives on rocky outcrops and sandbanks, on which many other plants can't survive due to strong currents or due to the fact that they often get into the fresh air when the tide falls. Genetic ancestor, Octogus. Scientific name, Octogenous Thriveleaf. Origin, retinal phyta. Lifespan, 25 local years. Average weight, 115 centimeters. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I had a lot of fun making this. I learned a whole lot of new techniques for helping to make these pictures look great. I want to once again say a special thank you to Kipzilla and Space Dragon. Kipzilla for making 2/3 of these creatures, and Space Dragon for lending his voice talents. Alright, well, if you like this video, do hit like, and remember, these videos are especially important to share because, once again, the algorithm hates this project. Alright, well, I hope to see you next time. I'm the Dapper Dinosaur. Before you go, I want to take a minute to thank my patrons and channel members, especially those pledging $20 or more. Work in Progress, Benthoven, Cynically Skeptic, Denny5252, Ian Chen, John Ackerman, Landon Knoll, Iapetus, Mabbity Babbity, Sphincter of Doom, Star Runner, and The Venerable Bean. Without my channel members and patrons, this channel simply wouldn't exist as it does now. You certainly wouldn't be getting up to 3 videos a week. You'd be lucky to get 1. So, if you're interested and you can afford it, check out my Patreon link in the description below or the Join the Channel button. Both of them get you access to the special patron and member-only Discord server, where I like to hang out. And at higher tiers, you can also get access to other things like your names in this credit, video requests, and more. No matter how much you pledge, you always get early access to my videos, and as of the time of this recording, that's about 10 different videos that you could have access to. If a monthly pledge isn't right for you, there are always other ways to support the channel. I have a merch store linked in the description. There's also an Amazon wishlist link there. And if none of that's right for you, and you just want to support the channel without spending any money, just liking these videos, commenting, and sharing them on social media goes a long way.